Hello and welcome to the Astrology Forecast. My name is Sage, here as your eye into the sky, letting you know what the cosmic events are for the week, why they matter, and how you can use this information in your everyday life. We are officially into the first full week of August, and of course that means also the second full week of Leo season. So of course, happy solar return to all the Leos out there listening. If you or a loved one has a birthday coming up, birthday chart readings, solar return readings are 50% off. Guys, this is a really exciting week. This is one of those weeks that really takes precedence over others because we have so much going on, right? And if you are listening to this earlier than Sunday the 4th, I see you for that. I am uploading this before the Sunday mark because, of course, we've got so much going on Sunday the 4th that we're really going to have to unpack this hopefully ahead of time, give ourselves time to prepare. With that being said, I'm going to be diving right into this week's forecast, and special announcement is I'm actually going to be posting 2 videos this week. So as you guys know, I have been doing regular forecasts every single week since October, and I have put out some feelers. Maybe you are somebody listening that did respond to see what else people are interested in hearing. And one thing that I've definitely seen a lot of interest in is horoscopes. So finally, this is the first week I'm doing it. I am doing it in alignment with the astrology, which hopefully maybe you'll understand as we get into it. But I am starting it now, of course, before the retrograde. We're going to be starting every 2 weeks, bi-weekly horoscopes, right? So new moon, full moon. Now, these are going to be best if you listen for your rising sign, which I will get into all of that on the actual video. I'm going to be separating it so that way it doesn't take up too much time on the weekly forecast, as it's not the only thing that's going on for the week, right? We do have other cosmic events. So the horoscope videos for the lunar event are going to be posted in a separate video. I will link it below. Make sure you click on that. It'll be a lot shorter. And again, it will be a lot more specific. So instead of going out there wondering, what house do I have the moon entering into? What house is the sun in, right? You can basically already get that answered and understand what to do with the energy on a much more specific and personal note. So that's a really exciting announcement I have for you guys. Again, hit the link below if you would like to see that video and listen for your sign. All right, with that being said, we have a jam-packed week, so let's dive right in. Make sure you do have your chart with you if you want a more in-depth understanding. We will be looking mainly at the sign of Virgo, at least in this video. The next one is going to be Leo, but this is all about Virgo, as we do have a few different planetary movements going on in that sign. So check out where you have Virgo and listen in for the next cosmic events that are going to be happening this week. Okay, so diving into the first major cosmic event happening on Sunday, August 4th, Venus is entering into Virgo. Now, Venus has been in Leo since July 11th. And again, look at where Leo is in your chart. Maybe you're familiar with your chart. Maybe you've got Leo placements in your chart. Venus was in Leo. It was a great time, a fun time, a bold time, right? Fire sign. So naturally, there was a lot of heat in the air. You know, it's hot, it's summer. But Venus in Leo definitely added to the fire. Now, on Sunday, Venus is leaving Leo and it's entering into Virgo. So we're going to look at Venus in Virgo. Venus will be in Virgo until August 29th. So literally the entire month of August, Venus is in Virgo. Now, we also have a lot of other things happening in the sign of Virgo, including the Mercury retrograde, which I will be discussing in a little bit. So be aware that your Virgo house in your chart, that area of life, is getting majorly activated. Now, Venus in Virgo is not the most comfortable place for Venus. If I'm being completely honest with you all, Venus in Virgo is one of the most challenging places for Venus to be in. Not scary. If you have Venus in Virgo, that's good. It's not a bad thing, right? There's no good or bad in astrology. It is all of what we make of it. But certain planets and the themes and the energy that that planet represents and rules over doesn't always quite align with certain signs, right? So in the case of Venus, Venus does extremely well in Pisces. And Pisces is the sign opposite of Virgo, meaning that Venus, because Venus does the best in Pisces, Venus doesn't do the best in Virgo. You could say it does the worst, but I hate to use that word and freak people out. Now, what is Venus in Virgo all about? Well, Virgo is an earth sign, right? So let's start with the element. Venus in Virgo, we're talking practicality, right? This is all about what makes sense. Venus is the planet of love, relationships, beauty, everything that's of value, art, romance, right? All of those very feminine qualities, those very soft and gentle themes, and of course, relationships, right? The connections that we have with other people. In Virgo, Venus can feel a little bit stifled, right? Venus in Virgo can be very focused on the practicalities of the relationship, but maybe not as focused on the emotional side, right? That's why, again, Venus does the best in the water sign of Pisces, not so great in the earth sign of Virgo. Now, here we go. There's some good things, right? I don't want to ever say that it's bad. It's not bad, but it certainly is something we can work with. One way we can work with Venus being in Virgo is to understand that the way we show love, at least for the month of August, and again, if you have this in your chart, you might be nodding your head like, yep, this is who I am all the time. Acts of service become the main form of love language, essentially, for this placement. And so for the next month, showing love, showing affection and care for the people in your life could be more so in tangible, practical ways, right? Acts of service, meaning, how can I fix this for you? Right? You've got an issue, you have something you need to get done. My way of showing you love, right? The Venus and Virgo way of expressing that connection is, I'll help you with this. I'll take this load off of you, right? I'll reorganize something for you or put things where they need to go. This is very Venus and Virgo. This is wonderful, right? This can be so incredibly helpful. And if acts of service is one of your top love languages, then you're in luck, right? Because Venus and Virgo is exactly that. And that's something to really look forward to. Now, other things about Venus and Virgo, perfection. When Venus is in and basically an earth sign, a little less Taurus because Venus rules Taurus, but definitely when it's in Virgo and even Capricorn, there is a sense that things have to be perfect, right? And Venus is a planet that does deal with artistic stuff, meaning the art we create, the creative genes within us, right? The juice is flowing. In an earth sign, we don't really have that. And so when Venus is in Virgo, our creative functions might feel a little bit limited, at least in the traditional way, right? We're not necessarily painting with bright colors and blending and, making abstract art. That's, again, much more of a Piscean thing or a water sign quality. In the case of Venus and Virgo, our art, our beauty, the value of things can be much more logical. I'm looking at spreadsheets and saying, wow, that's really aligned, right? Or looking at things getting measured to the exact inch, centimeter, millimeter, and you're like, man, that is just so perfectly aligned. It couldn't be much better. It's amazing, right? That is what Venus and Virgo is all about. There's beauty in that, right? There's so much beauty in math and science and numbers and things that we can essentially rely on, which is the earth, right? We can rely on the earth. And so this is really why Venus and Virgo can be really beneficial. Now, the other side of Venus and Virgo is when things have to be too perfect, oftentimes we get quite critical, right? As a collective, you might notice that especially Venus, the planet of value, this also relates to our self-value, could be in that more critical state. We might be finding that our words, especially to ourselves or even other people, hopefully not, but it could happen, are much more harsh. Mars is also in Gemini, and of course, Mars is being ruled by Mercury, also in Virgo. So there's a lot of correlation with our words being used as kind of like a weapon, right? We could be having some sharp words going back and forth. And that's not always beneficial, especially when we're dealing with Venus. Venus doesn't want hard problems between people. Venus is not about anger and conflict. That's not what it's about. But be aware that using your words as a weapon can come up, even though it is Venus and it's not Mars. There's still a connection there because of the fact that we're dealing with such a analytical sign, and sometimes that analysis can be brought too far. Other things about Venus being in Virgo, this is all about cleaning things up, right? It's the sign of purity, it's the Virgin Maiden. And in that sense, especially if we relate it to relationships, Venus in Virgo is anything that's non-toxic, right? When I think of Venus being in Virgo, I'm thinking like you have to like almost take inventory of your relationships and start to just weed out the stuff that is not beneficial, that's not useful, that's not helpful. That's like the main practical, productive task that we can really look at when Venus is in Virgo. And bonus points because Mercury is retrograde also in Virgo. So we're really reflecting that this area of life, and I say relationships, but it doesn't always mean romantic. It doesn't even always mean friendship. It can be sibling, coworker, children, right? There's a lot of relationships in our life. and they're all represented in the houses. You just have to know which house of yours is getting activated. Venus being in this house is definitely going to make us a lot more aware of what is helpful in the relationship and what is hurtful or not beneficial, right? What is not of use? Because Virgo is the sign that happens during harvest season. And harvesting is when we collect what is useful, right? We get all of the crops that are going to go to market and we discard of the ones that are no longer useful, right? That they're not going to make it to market. Do the same thing with your relationships, right? So if a relationship is not useful, maybe this is time to reconsider it. Again, Mercury retrograde will help with that. Now, the thing I want to point out with this, and this is one of the last things I'm going to say about Venus and Virgo, do not be so caught up, right? Be aware that often with this placement, we get so fixated on people being a resource, right? The people in our life, the connections, all the things that we find of value. They are a resource, right? Social capital is a real thing, but don't neglect people's humanity for the sake of their resourcefulness and their usefulness. Because as a result, guess what? If they're not useful and you throw them off to the side, you discard of them, now we're involving emotion, right? Which again, Venus and Virgo is not very focused on emotion, but relationships involve emotional bonds. And so be conscious that you aren't breaking and severing those emotional bonds at the expense of, well, this person, this relationship wasn't serving me, right? Virgo is a sign of service. Not only are you looking to make sure that those in your life are helping to serve you, but turn that mirror around. Are you helping to serve them? These are questions to ask yourself while Venus is in Virgo. How does service show up within my relationships? Not just how people are serving me, but how I'm serving them. And again, this can even be deepened when you look at where this is showing up in your chart. But either way, very, very helpful to know that expecting romance over the next month, expecting, rose colored glasses and basically glazing over any flaws in our partner, not happening, right? All of a sudden with Venus and Virgo, the binoculars are coming on, right? The microscope is being taken out. Be conscious that we are not over analyzing the people in our life and only pointing out their flaws, right? We still want to be of use and service, but also we don't want to neglect the emotional and human connection. Now, last thing I want to say, if you're if you're a Virgo rising, excellent time for you as Venus entering your first house. I always love to say it. Great for feeling more Venusian, feeling more attractive. You might want to update your wardrobe, get more accessories, get some bling, get a makeover, buy some new clothes, right? Connect with people more. So you might feel more social. You might feel more, if you're a woman, you might feel more feminine. If you're a man, you might notice that you're connecting more with the women in your life. So again, Virgo risings, anytime you've got a great planet like Venus moving through your first house, take advantage. You might be way more photogenic, get behind the camera, take some pictures, some selfies, some videos, whatever floats your boat. Make sure that you're taking advantage of this time. Money can even come your way, which is the fun part about Venus. Venus is a really positive energy. So for the next month of August, I know there's going to be some other stuff with the retrograde and everything else, but this is still something very positive to help mitigate anything that could come up as more challenging. So with that being said, Venus in Virgo is in effect until August 29th. Next, we're going to dive into everything involving the Mercury retrograde also in Virgo. All right, so let's dive into the second cosmic event happening also on Sunday, August 4th. Mercury is stationing retrograde in Virgo. Now, I have some good news and some not so great news regarding the Mercury retrograde. I think the first thing I'll say initially is that the not so great news is retrograde, right? Nobody loves retrograde. It's not necessarily the word you hear me say, and the choir bells go off. It's not that. But I have some good news about Mercury retrograde this time around. And that is the fact that Mercury in Virgo actually does the best. So unlike Venus being in Virgo, which essentially is its quote unquote worst sign to be in, Mercury being in Virgo is the best sign that it can be in, right? The technical astrology term is exalted. You probably have heard it said before if you are an astrology buff or you listen to any type of astrology. Now, Mercury in Virgo is great because number one, Mercury is the planetary ruler of Virgo, which means that this is literally its home sign. Not only that, but it's also been kind of boosted up and basically highly designated as not only its home sign, but also its best sign, essentially. There's some debate over that. Some people might argue that Mercury does also just as good in Aquarius, but that's for another conversation. So Mercury is going retrograde in Virgo. Now, Mercury originally entered Virgo back on July 25th. So we have already been feeling the energy of this planet in this particular part of our chart. And as a collective, we've been probably experiencing this as well. So that has already begun. But the pre shadow phase essentially started right when Mercury entered into Virgo, which I did talk about on my Instagram story if you follow me there. And now on the 4th, it's officially stationing retrograde. Now, again, just a quick basic reminder, Mercury goes retrograde 3 times a year. It does this every single year for about 3 weeks. So this is nothing new, right? We always move through retrogrades more than once in a year, and we always get through them. Okay, just a disclaimer. Now, Mercury retrograde is, of course, an optical illusion. It's not actually moving backwards, but the energy that is being essentially influenced upon us, right, exerted upon us, is that of essentially things being spun around and basically moved in reverse. So it's kind of like hitting the rewind button on the remote when normally the television program is moving ahead, in regular fashion. All of a sudden, you hit the pause button, you hit the rewind button, and now the show is going backwards. Kind of exactly what's going on with Mercury retrograde. Now, let's talk about some basic things to do and things not to do during the Mercury retrograde, and then we'll discuss what Mercury being in Virgo means and how you can more specifically work with that energy. So I did actually take down some notes. If you guys see me looking down, that's exactly why, because I wanted to essentially list what are some basic things we can do when Mercury is retrograde. What can we look to gain from this period of time? And how can I work with it constructively? Because that's the purpose of astrology. It's always going on, right? We're always experiencing it, but let's bring some greater awareness to it and actually utilize it as a tool. Prepare yourself for it and also know what to avoid and what to look out for. So basic things to do, especially during this retrograde, but any Mercury retrograde. Journaling, meditating, right? Again, we're going inward during this time. Very key. Our energy is not being expressed outward. And Mercury is the planet of communication, right? It's the planet of our mouth, our mind, it's our mental faculties, it's the way we synthesize information. So when that is retrograde, our thinking, our speaking, everything that is basically entering into our brain and exiting out of our mouth is all of a sudden getting slowed down. And it's actually the encouragement here is to essentially turn it around and basically go back inward, right? Don't worry so much about what you're speaking. Think more deeply about what you're experiencing inwardly, what you're internalizing. Other things to do and to look out for during the retrograde. Double confirm all appointments, all meetings. This is the time of the year where notoriously I can speak as somebody that has client bookings, and of course that deals with dates and times and confirmations and Zoom links. I'm always being ready and prepared during the retrograde that whatever it is, it probably isn't going to stick. And what I mean by that is, for example, right now, I was supposed to have a chart reading going on, a birth chart reading as I'm recording this, but it got rescheduled. So my initial plan to film this later in the day got moved up. Retrograde, right? I didn't expect that. It was set in stone. This was actually the second time it got rescheduled. And of course, that life happens, right? But it's a perfect example that, okay, we got to go with the flow. Be flexible. That's big key here. If things don't go as planned, just laugh it off, right? Just look up and kind of giggle to yourself, oh, chuckle, it's the retrograde, and just keep moving. Other stuff, back up your technology. In fact, before I started recording, I was like, okay, right, it's retrograde. Let me make sure that my storage is clear because I can't tell you guys how many times I record these videos, these forecasts, right around the time of retrograde, and it's the only time that my phone suddenly has no storage. And I don't know if I'm the only one out there, but that's the case with me. Also, my phone has been randomly shutting off, especially if I'm on the phone, or if I'm like on an app that's using a lot of bandwidth or whatever it's called. My phone just randomly has been shutting off. Now, I do have an older phone. Let me be honest. It's an iPhone 12. But this is unusual for my phone. And at the same time, I'm not surprised because I'm like, well, yeah, retrograde starts in a couple days. If you've been feeling the effects of the retrograde even before Sunday the 4th, that's to be expected as well. Honestly, the retrograde energy starts to creep in usually about a week or so ahead of time. I can attest to that for sure. I've been feeling the same. So please back up your tech, your iCloud, whatever you got to do. Please just do that ahead of time. All right, other things. Except delays. I kind of already spoke on that. Redos, having to go back. I can't tell you how many times I've had to return clothing I bought during a Mercury retrograde because suddenly I got it home and it didn't fit, or I didn't know that it like buttoned a certain way, or whatever it is. It's just typical, right? So if you purchase something, which I'm going to get into things to avoid, but if you have no choice but to purchase something, just make sure you keep the receipt. Like seriously, put that receipt somewhere safe. You might not think you'll need it because not often do we expect to return things, but that's the whole point of the retrograde. It's kind of like expect the unexpected and just go with it and know that, things aren't always going to go the way we expect them to. So just flow. Last but not least, well, second to last, miscommunication. Just things to do. Look to avoid communicating with people in a way that could cause more conflict, right? Be direct is a better way to say that. Be clear with your communication, as clear as you possibly can be. If you don't think it needs to be said, but it might need to be said, just say it. If you aren't sure that the person is fully aware that you're supposed to meet up at this day and time, don't just assume that they remember. Text them anyway, right? Just give them that extra heads up, because it's likely that somebody forgot or something else got moved around and their day has shuffled, and that's just the way things go. So just be conscious of that. And the last thing I want to say on things to do is to reorganize, right? Retrograde is the time to go back over things. And especially being in Virgo, the sign of organization, reorganizing your life, right? Your mind, your mental state. That's the first part. After that, your physical state. So reorganize your home, your office, your car, your kids' room, right? Anything, that junk drawer that you can barely open. I know, I've got one. Reorganize it. I mean, whatever it is to you, if it's the cabinets, if it's the pantry, I think you guys follow what I'm saying, right? Reorganize it. And also take special time to maybe even reorganize your thought patterns. As again, this is Mercury, the planet of our mind. And, this is a great time to, again, reflect, journal, meditate, and potentially revise the way that you think about things, as our thoughts are extremely strong and powerful. And this is the time to really not just consider it, but reconsider how you can improve and maybe again reorient how you do certain things. So those are things to do, things to be aware of and prepare ahead of time for. Things to avoid. Let's get into the juice of it. Beginning new stuff. This is one thing that I've seen time and time again, and I have been guilty of it. I'll be honest. I have started business ventures, astrology things, mainly in my earlier years, not so much as of late, but not really thinking that it would be that serious. And guess what? It didn't last. It didn't work. And I don't want to freak anyone out that's like, I have a launch date on August 5th or August 10th and I have no choice. That's why I gave you guys what to do ahead of time, right? Double confirm. If you got travel plans, make sure that you triple confirmed. Purchase the travel insurance. Again, those are the things you can do to make sure that you're in the clear. But if you really can avoid it, don't begin new stuff. So this can look like a new job, a new relationship, a new creative venture, business project. This is the time when, if you do follow through with those things and you do start them, you might notice that they have a repetitive quality to whatever it is. If it's a new relationship, you might find that you're going back over things with this person a lot, or they're reminding you of things from the past, or things just don't simply work out. You might think that it's great during the retrograde, and then the retrograde ends, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, I don't know what I was thinking, right? So that can happen during a retrograde. Signing any type of contract. I really advise people against moving, restarting a lease, anything like that. If you can help it, don't do it during the retrograde. Major purchases, major investments. These are things that, Mercury is the mercantile. It's the merchant, right? And so it's that concept of buying and selling, which is even true with our communication, right? What somebody is saying, I'm buying what they're saying and I'm selling them what I'm saying. So that's what Mercury represents. If we make big purchases, essentially that's almost like starting something new, right? You're doing something maybe a little different, because again, it's considered a big purchase. We don't often do those regularly. So just be aware that in a sense you are starting something and there's a potential for it to be slow, have obstacles, delays, challenges. Um, I've seen people lose money just because they decided to make some hasty decisions financially and they did it during the retrograde and it didn't go as planned. So if you can help it, no big purchases, don't sign that big contract, and don't purchase electronics. If you're like me and you have an older phone, just pray. Unless you already got your phone, or if you're listening to this and it's not Sunday yet, because I am posting this a bit early, get your phone now. Because if you don't, I wouldn't recommend getting it until September. So this goes for laptops, tablets, televisions, even cars. Don't buy a car during a Mercury retrograde, please. That can be a nightmare. So again, anything that is mechanical, that has any type of electricity involved, just avoid those purchases until after the retrograde, basically September, right? The retrograde is essentially the month of August. So just avoid these things for August. Other stuff, arguments, miscommunication can happen very easily. So don't start the argument. They might happen. Don't be surprised, but don't start the argument. Making spontaneous decisions that end up becoming reckless later on. That's a thing that happens less with Virgo qualities. So we're kind of a little bit in the clear, but I will say Mercury is not staying in Virgo the whole time. In fact, on August 14th, Mercury will retrograde back into Leo. So be conscious of that, because that's going to kind of rile things up, and it's actually going to weaken the Mercury retrograde in a bit, because Mercury won't be in a sign that's as conducive for itself. So just be aware of those spontaneous decisions, and maybe don't make them without really doing your research and considering all frames and perspectives. And last but not least, don't assume what someone thinks, because honestly, our communication these days might be twisted up. We might not be able to get the right words out. We might say the wrong thing and then have to retract what we said. Retrograde, right? Retract. So just be aware that you can't take everything for face value. And if somebody is saying something, or you kind of pick up on whatever their vibe is, ask questions directly. Be as direct as you can during this time to avoid any miscommunications, misunderstandings, assumptions, right? We don't want to jump to conclusions here that will lead to arguments and miscommunication, and that's no fun. So just be level-headed, ask, and just be as clear and concise as you can. All right, couple last things about Mercury being in Virgo. Again, this is the sign of the analyst. So we are going back over things with a fine-tooth comb, and in the case of retrograde, we're going over the past. So this might look like reviewing details, right? Going back over the nuts and bolts of whatever something is. And again, knowing where Virgo is in your chart, whatever area of life this is likely getting a revision. It's like going back over with spell check, and all of a sudden we have these glaring typos that we never thought were there before. That's the gift of retrograde. It's not all bad. Right? The gift is, I would have never known that there was a typo in that area of my life, that I missed the correct way of basically doing something, or I missed the details involving whatever that circumstance is. So that's something that's very helpful. Be aware that you don't go too crazy about reviewing things. And I make this motion because I feel like it could be that repetitive retrograde energy where we're going over things over and over again, and over and over again, and over and over again. And it can become mentally taxing, right? And so that's the time to pause, which is another retrograde theme. Breathe, right? So this is not the time to get overwhelmed, as that can happen. And also know that this is the time to reflect, but not necessarily act. And so whatever comes up during this time, whatever details emerge that you potentially had missed in the past, whatever conversation needed to be had that you didn't have, right? This is the time when notoriously ex-lovers and friends and people in your life that maybe you didn't experience that full closure with, they'll come back in, and suddenly there's communication that has to happen. Be clear, be direct, don't assume. So really that's the main thing that is going on with Mercury in Virgo. Again, it's a really beneficial time if you use it constructively. It can feel slow, it can feel stuck, it can feel frustrating as well. So just be aware and go with the flow. And also, like I said, Mercury will only be in Virgo until the 14th. And then I encourage you to check out again where Leo is in your chart, because it will move back into Leo. And when it does so between August 14th and the 28th, this is the time when we're going to be really integrating all of the lessons we learned while Mercury was in Virgo, and finding new ways maybe, to express these things. Don't express them until Mercury retrograde ends in September, but know what it is that you plan on executing, right? That fiery Leo energy. What is it that you're going to take charge on once the retrograde comes to a close? And so that really is the crux of this, guys. On Wednesday, the 7th, Mercury and Venus actually come together in the sky in what's called a conjunction. And this is really amplifying both of the energies that I just discussed. And that will be happening in the sign of Virgo. So this is a really great time to communicate things, especially in relationships, because that's Venus ruled. And also even involving money and any sort of exchanges. This could actually be a great time for any sort of buying and selling. Not that I'm saying you should do that, especially if it's a large purchase, which we already went over. But again, Mercury conjunct Venus on Wednesday the 7th can be very beneficial and very illuminating in terms of getting clear information, maybe from even stuff that was in the past regarding relationships and those emotional connections. All right, I know that was a lot of information. That pretty much wraps us up. I know we have the Lionsgate portal happening on Thursday the 8th. That is a whole separate topic. It's a portal that actually lasts for 2 weeks from July 26th to August 12th. Great time to manifest abundance, prosperity. 8 in numerology is the number of money, and even in Chinese culture, they really revere the number 8 for its abundance and its lucky properties. So take advantage of that. I'm going to actually be doing a lot more sharing on the Lionsgate portal on my Instagram story later this week. Make sure that if you don't already follow me, that you follow me. The link is below. Again, that link will take you to everything. And there's actually going to be more than one because, again, if you guys look below, I'm going to be sharing a full horoscope in my next video all about the new moon in Leo, which guess what is happening on Sunday, August 4th. So this entire video only covered 2 of the 3 major events happening all on Sunday. But it's a lot to cover in one video, and I appreciate you for getting this far. If you got value from this video, please make sure that you hit the like button, that you've subscribed, and of course, share this out with anybody you think that could gain some value from it. Please make sure that if you're interested in learning about how this new moon, this beginning of a new lunar cycle, is affecting you and what area of your life should you be setting intentions around, that will be answered in my next video, which is already posted. If you hit the link below, you can get access to that video. And guys, it's my first horoscope video. I'm really excited about this. Very, very, very new for me, but also what better thing to do during a new moon than to do something completely new and a little bit outside of the comfort zone. So with that being said, we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you all so much for your time and attention. I hope this information was of value, and I wish you all a beautiful week. Again, hit that link below for the horoscope video. And as always, I will see you all again next time.